What's going on, everyone? I've been lifting weights for a long time. If you count when I first started doing basic at-home exercises with a pair of dumbbells, that would make 20 years. That said, as a younger lifter, I did a lot of things inefficiently that led me to building a lot less muscle than I otherwise could have been building. And the way that I was thinking about lifting weights was a lot different than the way that I think about it now. In this video, while showing you footage from my latest gym workout, I thought I would share with you 5 things that I would share with my past, inexperienced, younger self if I had a time machine about how he or I could be lifting more efficiently to be building muscle a whole heck of a lot faster. My hope is that in sharing this with you, you might be able to take some of it, apply it to your own lifting approach, and potentially build muscle faster and more efficiently now for yourself. Before we get started, if you find yourself enjoying this video, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. It really helps me out. Okay, let's dive in. When I first started lifting weights, and more specifically, when I got my first gym membership in my mid-teens, I, like so many others, wanted to lift heavy. I saw lifting heavier and heavier weights as the singular means in which I would build tons of muscle, which is, at the end of the day, exactly what I wanted. I acted in alignment with that belief for years before my approach to lifting became more nuanced and productive. Now, to be clear, lifting heavier and heavier weights over time is a very effective way to build more muscle. If your muscles move against loads that are progressively heavier, then they'll adapt by getting bigger and stronger. That's absolutely 100% true. However, there's a caveat to that. If, while lifting heavier and heavier weights, you move with poor exercise technique, then there's a good chance you'll be building a lot less muscle than you might be hoping for. See, it's mechanical tension that is the primary driver of muscle growth. And while lifting heavier weights is a way of exposing your muscles to extra mechanical tension, if your exercise technique is poor, then that very well could negate a big portion of that mechanical tension. And that's what I fell into. Take the barbell bench press as an example. Over time, I ended up lifting pretty darn heavy, but with a poor range of motion and a lack of control. Despite lifting pretty heavy, my poor range of motion and lack of control left me exposing my pecs to far less mechanical tension compared to if I were to have moved with good range of motion and control. And so, I didn't build my pecs much over my first years of lifting because of that. In regard to this, if I could go back in time, I would simply tell myself to aim to lift heavier over time and get super strong. Yes, but learn how to move with good fundamental exercise technique first and keep that good fundamental exercise technique as you progress with heavier and heavier weights. And from doing that, that's how you'll build tons of muscle. Now, there was another motivation behind my drive to lift super heavy weights in the gym outside of just building muscle. To be blunt, it was to inflate my ego. I wanted to impress people. I wanted to be the kind of person that was looked at by others in awe. You know what the irony in that was, though? No one really cares all that much about how heavy you're lifting. Most people are in the gym more focused on making progress for themselves. Sure, when lifting an impressive amount of weight with good technique, it might stop a few people in admiration, but it's the kind of thing that would pique their interest maybe just for a few minutes or a few seconds. See, what I would do if I could go back in time is I would tell myself, no one else really cares all that much about how heavy you're lifting. In retrospect, if I really understood that, it would have been more of a friction-free process for me to have got my ducks in a row a whole lot sooner, to prioritize that I moved with good fundamental exercise technique rather than throwing around the heaviest dumbbells I could basically grab onto. Okay, so as you know now, for the first years that I lifted weights, I lifted with loads that were too heavy for me to lift with good technique. And a big downside to that was it led me to build a lot less muscle than I otherwise could have been building. Now, there was another downside to lifting too heavy with poor technique. It led me to a lot of aches, pains, and injuries. At this point, it might not be surprising for me to tell you that as stubborn as I was, I would often train through those aches, pains, and injuries, only for them to become significantly worse. I remember my mindset at the time, and in retrospect, it didn't consist of much logic. It was something like, if I keep training through the pain, eventually my body will adapt and heal. But no, that's not how that works. What actually happens is if you train through pain without changing the way you're lifting, the pain just gets worse. Honestly, can't tell you how many times I made that mistake. Far more than I would like to admit. So if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, whatever you do, don't train through pain. What I've learned over the years is how to train around pain. Start by identifying exactly where the pain is coming from and what movements aggravate it. From there, avoid anything that aggravates the pain and make changes to rep tempo, rep ranges, exercise positioning, exercise loading, or exercise selection if necessary. Even nowadays, as I do my best to train hard and heavy with good exercise technique, I still run into aches, pains, and injuries. It's part of the cost of doing business when it comes to building more muscle, I think. But I consider the skill of working around pain to allow for healing while still building more muscle to be one of the most valuable and truly essential ones that I now have. The key is to just not train through the pain and make it worse. With all of the injuries I experienced as a younger lifter, I can tell you one thing. I didn't take them lightly. Maybe some of you watching can relate to this, but especially from when I was in my teens and really into my mid-20s, I would get a lot of anxiety from them. I have distinct memories of genuinely wondering on occasions where I would feel tendon pain, for example, if I would ever heal. I would wonder if my injuries would lead me to lose all of my muscle. I would wonder if they would hold me back from building more muscle. I'm telling you, I had a lot of trouble keeping myself from getting panicky. If I could go back in time, I would tell myself, try not to panic or to get too anxious when you get an injury, feel a pain, or have some kind of an ache. The human body is an incredible thing. As long as you don't continue to aggravate the pain and make it worse, it will heal. But that's the key. Don't aggravate it by training through it. You've got to train around it. As mentioned earlier, I still experience aches and pains nowadays. And I would be lying if I told you that they don't still suck when they come up. That being said, however, I'm much more relaxed about them because I know they're just temporary and that there are usually still ways to continue building more muscle. It's also worth noting that I found training around injuries has actually been a means of learning how to lift better and more efficiently. It usually teaches me something about lifting. If you shift your perspective to that, you could look at aches, pains, and injuries almost as blessings in disguise. Okay. When I was a younger lifter, I wanted abs. That was basically the ultimate dream, really. Look like a superhero. And you're dang right that meant having clear, visible, well-defined abs. So I did a lot of direct ab work. In fact, from the time I first started lifting until I was in my latter years of university, I would start every last one of my workouts with a 15 to 30 minute ab isolation circuit. It was a big energy and time investment. And you know what the ironic part about that was? Despite spending so much time training my abs directly, they never became visible throughout that time. At my best, I got a kind of ambiguous 4-pack, but a 6-pack, nothing. If I could go back in time, I would tell myself to just focus more on your diet. See, visible abs come through being lean enough to see them, as in having a low enough body fat percentage that the fat that would otherwise cover those muscles would be gone. Don't get me wrong, high quality ab training can build bigger abs, just like training any other muscle has the potential to grow it. But that's not what most people's issue is when it comes to getting visible abs. The issue is needing to lose the fat that's sitting on top of those muscles. And you know how to lose it? Primarily through your diet and ensuring that you're eating in a deficit. If I realized that sooner, I would have got visible abs a whole lot earlier in my life. And that's what I would tell myself if I could go back in time. Ironically, at this point, I haven't really done any direct ab work whatsoever for around 8 years at this point. And yet my abs are far clearer than they ever were when I was doing that direct ab work practically daily. And there you have it. 5 things I would tell my younger, less experienced self to help him build muscle faster and more efficiently. I'd love to hear what you think. Can you relate to any of those points? Is there anything that you would tell your past, younger, inexperienced self? Let me know in the comments. Before this video comes to a close, I wanted to quickly let you know about the work that I do. When I'm not making YouTube videos, recording podcast episodes, or making Instagram content, I work full-time as an online physique coach, where I help my clients to accomplish their muscle growth and fat loss goals by optimizing their approach to strength training and nutrition, and I coach them through the process. I've been doing this work for over 7 years and love helping my clients to not only transform their bodies, but ultimately their lives. If you've been considering getting some help with accomplishing your own physique goals, feel free to hit the link in the description below where you can learn a little bit more about the work that I do and how I can help you. You can even use that link to schedule a free video consultation with me. If you have any questions about my coaching or how I can help you, just email me at sam@jadeathletics.ca. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.